Oh, yeah.
Marbles.
Yeah.
Minutes. This is quiet.
Yeah, Christmas music or something.
Mhm.
Beat music.
Kind of shut us all up, brought us.
We get there real quiet. There you go. Silence is too loud.
It is, isn't it?
Get up music or
Maybe Sharon can sing for us.
I did hear what you said.
He wants you to sing.
Oh,
is that a maybe or is that a no?
It's like a no to me.
you want people to stay, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to stay.
Now too. Good evening. It's 6:30, so we'll go ahead and call the regular council meeting for tonight, Tuesday, December the 7th. And Teresa, if you can call the roll
Mayor Chip Dutcher, Gerald Robertson,
here.
Doug Laner,
Here.
Marvin Block,
Here.
Ben Lee,
Here.
Sharon Hendren.
Here.
Carol Van Dees.
The invocation will be done by Ben Lee.
Stand.
Please stand.
Thank you, Lord, for bringing us all together here this evening to City Council chambers to discuss and deliberate those items most important to the city and to the overall community of Johnstown. Please give us the strength and the wisdom to deliberate, discuss, decide the manner most appropriate for everybody that has a vested interest and a stake in Johnstown. Please continue to watch over all of our first responders, military men and women, both home and abroad. And continue to watch over those suffering in any capacity, bring them peace, bring them health. In your name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just want to introduce myself tonight. I'm Cheryl Robertson. I'm president of CONSO. Our mayor, Chip Dutcher, is under the weather tonight, so that's why he's not here, and that's why I'm sitting in his chair. So I just want to introduce myself and welcome everyone here tonight. We're always glad to have a crowd to see what's going on with Johnstown. So from there, we'll go to action on minutes.
Did you want to do the recognition?
Oh, yes, thanks. Okay, first of all, Chief Haroon, if you want to come up, we have a special recognition for our Deputy Chief Smart.
Thank you. Members of council, councilman-elect, and members of the community. As you know, Deputy Chief Wesley Smart has graduated from Northwestern University Center for Public Safety School. And I wanted to present that to you. Thank you for his hard work. I think he was a straight A student And also take this opportunity to thank his family for the sacrifice and not with them in order to achieve it. Congratulations. Smart. Members of council, I'd like to formally thank you as well. Wasn't for your support. And it's that commitment to education that the community as well as council and everybody and its constituents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we will go to action on minutes. Is there any changes, any comments?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Are all in favor of approval?
Yes.
Yes.
At this time, we'll go on to citizens' comments on matters not on the agenda. So if anyone has a comment to make, feel free to come up. We have comments for 3 minutes. Okay. No one's coming up. We will close citizen comments. The next on the agenda, Joe Simonello, if you want to come on up.
Thank you, President. Making time to hear us. Mr. President, the planning commission meetings that we had. to approve our preliminary plat for crossing.
Mhm.
Couple for this evening, preliminary plat. 90,000. And Uncle Crossing East, it has been some time since that development.
Mhm.
And through the 3 meetings, there was misunderstanding of the process. So, like planning commission and legal as well, which it was able, minutes, legal, know exactly what the zone was. Whatever that's moved to October 26th. The reason why we took time between March and October, there's a lot of issues, concerns raised by the residents.
Mhm.
Work with them. I think the minutes in the future, collaborating with them, trying to listen. So, and again, we take the October 26th. Well, no, actually, the October 26th meeting. At that time, the planning commission was under the impression that they were giving voting on recommendation to council. And the preliminary plat would come from council. That was in that. And there were votes with motions. The one passed and that meeting was the preliminary plat would be moving forward to council with. So after that, I got the. So that really was back. And we all got more educated with section. What it takes to approve it. And there are certain items in there, those that approved by, city administrator. that they could those and so we will come back on the agenda for November. And a lot of discussion. So to continue concerns. Just
Mm.
the neighbors and so it was asked of us. Not required by section. Preliminarily done. We said that expense was $10,000. We thought that was not some more request. Access, all the numbers, access, state, staff, the city, not access.
Mhm.
Yeah. So there were still some outstanding issues. Technicality that did not.
Mhm.
And so it did not meet items under consideration, and I requested. Motion made. There was some other issues that have come up. I think, I think you look back through things. On November 9th, there was a motion made with 5 conditions. And I think our preliminary plat ready to bring back the full planning. We'll have all the technicalities, right? We'll have the open space. How we request. And we'll prepare to meet all those 5 conditions that were brought through. But after a request to take this back, 5 conditions were put on. And it's been back.
Mhm.
So I really respectfully, because $19,000 fee is a substantial fee, and I understand that, you know, if the process is followed the way it's supposed to. So asking council if I was instructed, council. That's what
Okay, Joe. Is there any comments from council?
Yes. Who instructed you to come to council with the fee package?
checked with the legal, I checked with Teresa. Council and
Council Clerk.
yeah, council clerk and said that would be the process.
Well, I've got some reservations about it, Joe. Yes, you paid a $19,000 fee. You paid that back in March, I think. And you had been talking to our staff here for several months about the project over there, had several meetings with staff before you made the original commitment for the preliminary plan and paid your fee. And after you paid that fee, you had several meetings with staff after that. You had several meetings with the zoning department. And then I think our attorney was out here for 2, maybe 3 meetings at night. And each one of those meetings cost us anywhere from $800 to $1,200 for legal. And I am not in favor of waiving any fees at all. We've had quite a few expenses out. And to reiterate, zoning turned you down that night. And after the vote had started, I think you asked them to table it and they refused to table it after they already started in the voting process. And you kept coming back. You come back with a 20-year-old plan, wanted to implement that. They let you keep the PUD zoning. They took the preliminary plan away from it. PUZ is zoning according to our booklet here. And if the staff had read the booklet, you'd have found out that the PUD died after 18 months and the preliminary plan died after 12 months. He was told that in a zoning meeting, but yet you continued to bring that plan back and you talk about the emergency exit, which will have to be approved by council. I don't know how you're going to get that emergency exit. You call it an emergency exit. If it's an emergency exit, you can't lock it up. And you're going to be disturbing the trailhead that the village of Johnstown, that's been over $1 million on that trailhead, getting it up and about over the last 20 years when you was waiting to build this project and you never did file. If you had a preliminary plan, it was okay back then, you never did file anything on it. And you didn't pay taxes on any of those vacant lots over there like the other developers has. That's my feelings on it.
Any other comments? Okay. I would suggest that we take it under advisement tonight and then get back to you, Joe. This is something that we have not faced before. And I think we really like to get legal counsel on it before we make a decision. So I thank you for your time and we'll definitely take it under consideration.
Would it be okay just to respond,
Yes,
so council can get
yes.
a response?
Mhm.
Number one, but thinking that night was
Remove it from the table.
Moved.
after it was removed. I do understand these are for expenses.
Mhm.
And I was going to put in a request for expenses. If the expenses exceed we have no issue with that. But I do not believe $19,000. You're right, we did meet with the staff. Most times. And, every time the staff report. And my section 1605. If the plat is approved. Sent to stating that it's all requirements. I know things don't all the time go by. Exactly, and council and the planning commission and the community. It's an issue. I appreciate the fact.
Thank you, Joe. At this time, we're moving to executive session. It's to consider the employment of a public employee. We would like to ask, first of all, council, we're going to go over into the next room. You guys can stay here if you want to. We'll be back. But I would like to ask Jack, Dana, Teresa, and Ryan Green to come with us. Do we need a vote to go?
Yes, I need a motion and stating the reason and a second and then a roll call vote.
Okay, so I'll make the motion to go to executive session. Again, the reason is to consider the employment of a public employee.
Second.
Doug Lennar,
Yes.
Marvin Block,
Yes.
Ben Lee,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Sharon Hendren.
Yes.
Well, we have to look at, we built all those new rooms, but they didn't balance
I bet they did.
the heat.
Yeah.
We got some rooms that are cold, and some that are hot.
You're back there long enough, you're gonna fall asleep.
Well, when you stepped outside, you woke back up.
Look back up pretty quick.
I did not take my jacket with me.
Yeah.
In that room. Hold with it.
And we are returning back to regular council session, and what we'll go to is the council committee reports. Planning and zoning, Bailey, do you have anything to report on that?
On the 23rd, Planning and Zoning heard an application for a variance for the construction of a new home located on Payne Street. The reason this lot needed a variance is because it's very small. And it's an infill lot, so it doesn't really fit into our zoning standards. Planning and Zoning granted that variance, and then they talked about the draft of the zoning code. They actually finished reviewing the draft of the zoning code at that meeting. So now staff has some action items that Planning and Zoning gave to staff to sort of complete and then send back to Planning and Zoning for a final review to send to council. So I'd really like to thank Planning and Zoning for doing that. They did a great job with their busy schedule this year. So. And then on December 1st, we had two applications. We had an application for a conditional use that would be located on Main Street. That application was tabled. And then we had an application for a certificate of appropriateness for a new retail store that would be located on US 62. And that application was also tabled. Planning and Zoning at that meeting set a special meeting on Monday, December 13th at 6:30.
Thank you, Bailey.
I have a question for Bailey. Bailey, do you recall a permit coming through for the sign out there at the old Coughlin building? I think it's on the, there was a sign put across one of the other signs that said something about quick oil changes.
I don't.
Yes, I can.
Oh.
Jim.
And you approved that?
Yes, it was just basically an add-on sign.
Well, according to our code here, Jim, I've talked to you about signs before. The use of fluorescent, day glow, and neon colors is prohibited on those temporary signs. And that's a glow sign.
I didn't realize it was a closed sign. I'll look into it.
Well, there's no looking into it. It's right here in the code book under 117606. D. It's under section D, 117606. Signs out there are out of the code anyway, and we've made numerous complaints on them and talked to you about them before. And that's the reason I brought this up at council meeting, because I want council to know that it's been brought to your attention.
That's fine. Thank you.
We'll move on to safety and service, which was held this evening. Ben, I believe do you have anything?
Yep. So we had, I think it was noted, the fastest safety and service committee meeting to date, which was great. It's 40 minutes to talk about food. But a couple things wanted to bring to council outside of some things that Jack will probably touch on with the utility updates in terms of, I guess, first of all, Jack, do you want to maybe give an update on staffing, or do you have that as a part of your report?
I was just gonna cover that under the report unless you would
Perfectly
like me
fine.
to do it now.
Nope, that's totally fine. You can wait on, not a problem. So Jack, give an update on staffing, construction project update. We'll have a conversation on as a part of that as well. No information yet on the Hartford water line conversations that have been discussing. Still waiting on the third round of awards from the states and no date yet on that. And then nothing from the county with respect to the ARPA request that we put in yet either. So we're Bailey's taking that away to follow up on ensuring that the application was sent in. And I think you already sent out an updated final version of that policy from the county because we were just working off of a draft at the moment. So everybody should have that in their email if you didn't already. But what we wanted to bring to council, a couple of things just for consideration. Safety and Service went 3-0 on asking staff or wanting to direct staff to submit another application for the county ARPA funds to support our sewer lining project that we have within the village. So the Hartford water line project would service Hartford, Croton specifically at the state and county funding. This would service the city and have a direct impact to the city itself. So we would have 2 applications in there, but I think when they have that money is available to try and do what we can to secure it for the city, it is incumbent on us to try and do it if we're able. So staff just wanted some direction, and we wanted to bring it to council for any other questions, but we wanted to do a formal vote as well so that staff could prioritize that. So open up to any questions. I don't know if anybody has any question about Jack and what that project is, or if there are any reservations from anybody about moving forward with that.
Could you tell us a little bit about the sewer lining?
Well, what we've been doing, and as council is aware of, every year we've allotted $100,000 for CIP, out of CIP to line sewers. And what that is trying to prevent groundwater from getting into the sewer and get to the sewer plant. So every time we'll have a major rain, our average flow at the sewer plant is about 650,000 gallons a day. If we get a major rain, 2-day rain, we'll bump up to almost 3 million gallons a day. Well, obviously people want to flush the toilet more because it's raining. So we have a lot of inflow and infiltration into these sewers. So that 100,000 gallons or $100,000 a year that you have been allotting the sanitary system to use, we are putting lining inside of all these old sanitary service lines to prevent that water from inflow. Also, we are bringing manholes up to surface that have been buried with risers so water can't leak down in through the top. The goal long-term is by reducing all this inflow coming into the plant, you extend the life of the plant in peak flows. So $100,000 will cover about 2 blocks of sewer line, which isn't a lot, but that's the price of this technology. So I appreciate your question. I did have one question back to Ben. Do we have any idea what block of number we would like? I mean, would we like to ask for $500,000 towards sewer lining? Where do you want me to go with this overall application?
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair question. I know that within the application, it lays out some parameters with what the city has to put in as well from our side. And it has to do with the amount of ARPA dollars that we have available. And I know we have, through the budget process, aligned some already and expended some, but we do have the second tranche coming in July, I believe. Is that right, Dana? That really, we've talked about the expense for it, but obviously practically it hasn't actualized because it's not here yet. Based off of what's being required in the application, $500,000 seems like a good place to start to me, assuming that it fits within what we have available from an ARPA perspective relative to what the application's asking for. So I think it's a good starting point, in my opinion,
That's kind of
from
what I
what we
was
talked in finance.
picturing.
But I think it's probably going to come down to, because I don't have that specific number in front of me, what Dana has on what's
Yeah, because
left.
we have to, they call it skin in the game,
Mhm.
obviously, but I don't know if they gave a percentage of match.
Is there-
Okay,
Did they? That was like 10% or something.
Yeah, 10 or 20%.
To 50%, I thought.
so let's just stick with the 10%. So we're talking about $50,000 or a $500,000.
Yeah.
Seems
So
to.
go to 1 million with your 100,000.
I don't think you.
Well, because the CIP that you would allot me, which is in the budget again this year for lining, if we put that as our skin in the game and we could pick up another $900,000 worth of lining.
Mhm.
I mean, we've already allotted that much money.
We can go ahead, because the assumption I think is that we're going to need to have another finance meeting anyway,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So we can probably call a finance meeting between now for sometime in the coming week and have that narrowed down within finance. If the balance of council, I think that's a good point about the 100,000. If we already have that assigned to it, the draft states 50% of ARPA dollars toward the project,
Is there a date? This
January
has to be in-
4th.
Okay, so we have a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Jack,
With the holidays, just
I
just a
know,
little bit of time.
I know.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Jack would be safe in pursuing getting his paperwork filled out.
Right.
You guys meet though.
Oh, yes. Mhm.
yeah. The vote tonight would just be to direct staff's time and energy to doing that.
Mhm.
And then we would have a conversation in finance that would help kind of narrow down that number.
And then Dana, we'll have to see what we've already allotted a lot of this, because
Yeah.
if I recall right, we've allotted a lot of this ARPA money
Yeah.
for items, and then we had, I'm gonna call them contingency items that we were looking for as well.
Mhm.
So maybe we could get a list of those, see those costs and see how it would fit in.
Yep, I can pull that easily.
Ben, did you want to make a motion for this?
Are there any other questions or concerns or anything from anybody? If not, yeah, I'll go ahead and make a motion to direct staff to begin the process of this application toward the sewer lining with 500,000 as a baseline, and then we'll have a finance meeting.
Ben, do you have that schedule
Got a copy of it?
on line? You can just send that to me, or Teresa, do we have a copy of that schedule?
You're talking about the deadline and the
Yeah,
timetable?
the deadlines.
I know Bailey just sent out the final version.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right, thank you.
but yeah, January 4th is the completed applications due hard copy to Commissioner's office.
Okay, all right, yeah, I just want to make sure I can beat those deadlines with the holidays
Sure.
Yeah.
coming up.
Teresa, did you get all that?
A motion to direct staff to begin the process of application. What is the app?
For the Commissioner ARPA funding.
The commissioner. With $500,000 as a baseline.
Okay,
I'll second.
Marvin Block,
Yes.
Ben Lee,
Yes.
Cheryl Robertson,
yes.
Sharon Hendren.
Yes.
Planner.
Yes.
So two more things. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. It's exciting to look at adding to that program, knowing the need that we have.
Absolutely.
Two other items that we talked about in safety and service to bring to council's attention is there was Marvin made a comment at the end of one of the last meetings we had about cutting off permits for Pulte, and we voted 7-0 to do so if we hadn't received engineering plans or a performance bond for the Bigelow 62 signal that has been discussed for, that's
Ever.
the new forever project, forever. So what had come up is that the ODOT plans that we had were not forwarded on to Pulte, and thus Pulte did not have the information to start their end. So it has been 2 weeks since that has been done. There is movement on that where we've received some preliminary numbers and we've requested some more detailed information. But the important thing to take away is that we've put it out there, we're getting information, and that project is continuing to move forward, and we're working on that. So there is traction to that.
Correct.
The final thing is brought up after reading through some Municipal League information. House Bill 494 has been introduced into the Ohio House that is talking about giving municipalities the ability to establish a school adjacent zone as an alternative to a 20-mile-an-hour school zone within a half mile of a school. Currently, I believe 300 feet is the radius, is the limit, and specifically talking about what we were trying to accomplish over at Leafy Dell Elementary. And so my thought was in bringing it up to safety and service, because there's a practical application to what we could do if this bill becomes law, is to write a letter in support and send it to our representatives, Mark Frazier being the representative that we would send it to, as we've done with other bills that we were either for or against. So safety and service saw it as a practical idea. I wanted to bring it up to council to see if there are any questions or concerns. And then we can figure out a way to draft the letter, if agreed.
We was there at the meeting, and do you and Sharon understand what happened with Pulte? They didn't get the engineering papers.
I didn't know.
They did not get the engineering papers from the village manager. When we asked that night, he said he'd
Yes.
send them the next day. They were never sent.
Okay.
When Jack discovered that, since I brought it up in the meeting, he
Mhm.
called me and he told Pulte they could have some additional time to work on that, which is only fair.
Mhm.
They didn't get the paperwork, so now they've got the paperwork and they responded to start with within 2 weeks. Didn't give us exactly what we wanted, but they've already responded to it when they got the paperwork.
Thank you for explaining that. Anything else, Ben?
Well, House Bill 494,
sorry.
no, with that school adjacent. Just wanted to call out if there was any favorability, and we had favorability in safety and service to do it. But Sharon and Cheryl, if you had any questions or concerns about moving forward with putting a letter together that we would send to
No.
Representative
That's fine.
Frazier in support of
yeah.
that.
Do you want that
That's good.
signed by council or do you want me to sign that?
You want us to ask the village manager, do it, want to put it into a motion? Or ask them to do it?
Would you want to draft the letter?
I'll probably work on that with,
How about you let Ben draft the letter?
Draft it.
and you-
well, does council want to sign? Or do you want me to? sign?
I would think all of council and you.
Okay,
Yeah.
well,
Yes.
Ben, you just artfully put that together. then.
I have no problem doing that.
Good man, Ben.
That's fine with
I don't always
me.
understand what you say, but you're a good man.
I'm gonna take that as a compliment.
Well,
That's fair.
it was intended.
Okay, so I'll move forward with that and I'll try and have that as soon as I can to bring back to everybody.
Thank you.
That's it
Thank
for
you,
safety
Ben.
and service. Yep.
Okay, finance met on November the 16th. We reviewed it the last time. I think at this time we should look at when we want to meet again. Dana, Ben and I, and we'll tell Chip.
Well, for finance. If,
Also 13th. That's next Monday.
I could, planning and zoning's at 6:30. I can do
Yeah.
5 o'clock.
On Monday?
Yeah.
Planning and zoning's on a Monday this time?
Yeah.
5 o'clock on the 13th? Yes. Okay.
We'll go ahead and call finance for 5 o'clock on.
You think that's going to get canceled? Zoning?
So finance 5 PM on Monday, 13th before planning and zoning, and we will talk about the final number for ARPA, any other budget considerations at that point as well. Should be the only 2 items we have.
Okay, economic development, the December meeting was canceled. Hopefully, we will have a meeting on January the 6th. When's our first council meeting? Do you know, Teresa?
January 4th.
Okay, so we'll say January the 6th will be the next economic development meeting. Parks and Rec met November the 18th. Marvin, did you attend that or?
No, I was
No.
afraid to go.
I don't know. Is there any comments? And Bailey, did you?
Oh, we were there. We had a proposal from an Eagle Scout to build a community library box.
Mhm.
Sort of the take a book, leave a book approach. That Parks and Rec had some suggestions for, but was overall supportive of. We've been invited to apply for a TAP grant that
Mhm.
is due on January 31st.
Bailey, you're responsible for that, aren't you? Okay.
It's a TAP grant.
The Transportation Alternatives Program for active transportation, off-road transportation, basically not automobile traffic. So we'll be applying for multi-use trail through Racket Creek.
Can we get some of it used over there by the dog park and the mud hole?
With this application, we won't be able to, we'd have to use it on the same project. But we can apply for more in the next cycle.
Okay.
Where were they going to put this library?
It would be in Hannah's Park, Parks and Rec. The Parks and Rec Committee talked a lot about the locations and had some good suggestions and asked the Eagle Scout when he was ready to come and talk to staff and pick out a good spot for it. But they think that somewhere near the playground where kids would see it and use it would be a good spot. He also wants to build a bench to put next to it so you could read while you're on the bench. I'm sure we talked about more, but
appreciation plaque for Chops Montgomery. You can,
Yes, actually, I'm gonna hand that off to Marvin, because weren't you meeting with,
I met with his daughter and
Okay.
talked to her. And Jack had some boulders, was gonna pick out a boulder, and she'd give me some comments of what she'd like to see on the plaque. She liked the area that we talked about, putting it up there next to the clock, a boulder down on the ground and just a plaque on the side of the boulder.
has she finalized the wording, so we have some idea of size?
Not 100%, but she didn't want anything flowery or anything like that. She,
Well, that wouldn't be Chops Montgomery, Lowry.
I suggested that they put, she wanted chops put on it, and I suggested down in the body of it when they was given somewhat of a description, Mr. Johnstown, because everybody called him up. All their problems, they called chops.
Mhm.
Back in the day when we didn't have very many people working here.
I think his service years and stuff, I think would be nice.
Oh, yeah,
Important to be on there.
that's a good idea too.
It would be. I have a question on the trees for the trailhead that, we were going to donate, like each one of us was going to buy a tree or where are we with that?
They haven't been planted, they're here.
They're here.
They haven't
Do
been-
you need the money?
No, I need the time to get it done,
Okay,
somebody to help.
Do
okay.
you have that location
I
set
gotta
out
go over
in your
there and
mind?
set it out. I haven't done it.
Because
Joe.
very obviously, Marvin, if I know when and we can set a time out, which this time of year is good for tree planting. I'll get the street crew to support and help you get those
That would help.
in.
Help.
Because they're good sized trees
Yeah.
back there. They've been
Mhm.
delivered. They're nice trees, so I can get a group, if we just plan it out a little bit, I'll try to get the holes maybe pre-dug for you. And of course, I know up there on Main Street, you actually had a machine come in, didn't you, and do that, or?
And
instead of
Auger come in, but that's not necessary. We had so many planted. But
Yeah, because I mean, I can dig them with the backhoe easily enough,
well, these are gonna be new ones over there,
so.
new holes, so.
So
We got that part cleaned out and, I don't know, did you see the thing I brought to you back there, the water thing?
no,
There's a big tank back there, holds 250-gallon water trees and stuff.
okay, all right.
We'll get those in, Cheryl.
Well, I just want to make sure I pay my obligation. So that's what I'm
I think
concerned
some
about.
is not going to, but,
Well,
Hey,
just let us
I will
know.
pay you, Marvin.
Now I know what that tank is for. Street department wanted to use it to put brine in.
oh, no.
And I said, I don't know who that tank belongs to, so let's check
Well,
first.
they could use it. for
And we
fertilizer.
could rinse it out, before.
Yeah, that's a good idea. isn't
As
it?
additional brine holding tank, and I said, well, I forgot to ask, but I said, just hold on. I don't know who that tank belongs to or where it came from.
I'll talk to you about it later. I got all the parts out there. They can put that brine in there and spread it around.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
good enough. Now that's one mystery solved.
Okay, thank you. The Tree Commission, the next meeting will be February the 22nd at 5 PM here in the council chambers. From here, we will move on to the director reports. What's up is the service department. Jack, that's you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to start with the street department. And before we delve into the actual file, I do want to address the staffing situation. As you know, we were short 3 full-time staff, 1 part-time staff. And then we got a resignation from our street supervisor. So we had 1 employee left down there. And I have worked diligently interviewing and getting around. And just to let you know, the 3 full-time positions have been awarded. They are all not working yet. Some of them have to give 2-week notice where they're at. So 2 of those started, I think about 10 days ago. We got another full-time staff starting on the 13th, and then the new street supervisor will start on the 20th. So we're coming up to speed, and then the part-time employee will be starting on February 1st. We thought he'd be able to start here in December, but due to some retirement rehire situation, we had to delay that till February 1st. Now to jump into report, 6 ton of asphalt down this month. Of course, cold weather, no staff has hurt us a little bit there. We have done our regular sewer maintenance, jetting and cleaning some sewers. Of course, if you're up at the dog park, you've seen the 2 new fire hydrants installed for the dogs in the dog park, which we get a very large number of comments on, appreciated comments.
You
I
flush
was
those, yeah.
surprised.
You put those on the flush.
Yeah. But yeah, very surprising. We did have 2 breaks last month, one on Parkside and one on Payne, and continuing the training. Again, the new employees, David Hatman and Jared Hopple, and then Bill Swick was one of the newer employees. So we're taking him back through the whole training regime again. So to beef that up. Again, we have a lot of statistics here, but mainly I like to go down to the track usage on the asphalt. You can see the hours that is put in the streets where they're installed, or where the asphalt is installed. And that's pretty much for the street department. Any questions on the street department?
Was there training done with Commerce? That's a lot of man hours for 9 tons of asphalt.
Well, Commerce took a lot of digging out,
Is that a,
and so more than the asphalt going down, we're having to manually dig all that out and prep it to put patch in. Those man hours are part of that. Now, Mike Guttridge actually come up. He had seen another community actually has been renting a Bobcat with a small grinder on the front of it. So instead of cutting it by hand and chipping it out, they just rent the unit and grind it out and get those. They may rent the unit for a day and prep countless places, which are much faster. So again, Mike Guttridge brought this to my attention of way of doing it. I brought this up to our new hire superintendent, who is from Pataskla. He said, yeah, I'm familiar. We actually experimented with that, liked it so well. We purchased a Bobcat and a small front grinder for it. So this is, here again, he's going to step right into this
right?
new mode of next year, the way we're going to do things. And he said, I believe you'll find we can do so much more, so much faster, that Pataskla even decided to buy the equipment instead of just renting it, a piece at a time. We'll experiment and see, but it's nice to know that Mike was looking forward to it, and then who we have hired actually operates that way and agrees that it's the best way to do it.
It might be worth asking if we can borrow Patasco's equipment to experiment before we,
Test,
yeah.
And that connection, I think, from the glowing resume we got from the gentleman that Dan works for, that may be really possible because they viewed him as one of their top employees.
Mike and I had a conversation about that too. I said something to him, asked him if you guys had a Bobcat, and he said no. Then he got to talking about that. I think you can buy them separate and maybe have the head, the grinding head, and then rent the Bobcat.
Yeah, there's many different ways. Like I said, this would be new for me. We've done it the old way, cut it by hand, broke it out by hand. So we're gonna take a look at how this mode works next spring, and there's good CIP items for the following. If we find it fruitful and successful, we could obviously do what Marvin said, buy the equipment, just rent the Bobcat from down the road here, and then over time decide if we use it enough to actually use the Bobcat full time. So many ways to go through as we're trying this out.
On these 3 projects here, Jack, Casson, Concord, and Commerce, had 392 man hours in it. If that Bobcat and grinder would cut that man hours in half.
And the majority of that is prep.
Yeah.
Getting the stuff dug out and go. That more majority is prep. Sawing takes the longest, and I'm sure Doug's familiar with that, but sawing through the asphalt and cornering it up is what takes the time.
200 man hours there, and your average person down there makes about $20 an hour. That's $4,000 you get saved on those projects.
Yeah. And could probably easily over time purchase equipment. So. Okay, I'm going to jump into the water report and just going to again hit the highlights. Produced over 19 million gallons for the month. Item 5, completed the emergency response plan for the EPA, something we all have to do and get completed. This was Terry's first run at doing that type of thing. So he did a nice job with it, reviewing it, looking it over and filling it out. Something that hasn't been done for a couple years, again, due to additional staffing at the water plant, exercising our mainline valves. This is very critical, and it's something that had got away from us. We've started again. So we're able to section off sections of town and know where those valves are and knowing they're operational. And when we moved Tim Perry from the street department to the water and sewer department, we were splitting his wage there as maintenance back and forth. We have found time where he can actually go out and start operating these valves again. And as well, I told you the month before, we got all of our fire hydrants flushed for the first time in 3 years. So by moving him to the water plant and kind of separating those duties where he's not running off working on the street stuff, we're able to start catching up on this maintenance. Very important and needed. Item 8 is important just for information. On November 26th, fire at Mohawk, 143 Commerce Boulevard. As a result of the fire, the plant produced 957,000 gallons in a one run time, and we had to run 39 straight hours to be able to battle that and keep water sufficient pressure into the town. So again, this emphasizes the need for the additional tower that we're building right now. Thank you, council. And the need to upgrade the plant, because the plant over a 24-hour period can only produce 1 million gallons. So it hits, into my mind when we were producing 800,000 gallons a day during the summer. If this fire would have hit at that time, we could have put us in jeopardy. So again, the need of the additional tower for protection of the town, as well as additional plant, I think this just illustrates we're moving the right way.
Absolutely.
The next page with Councilman Lee's suggestion, Terry was putting down all these different numbers, and so we've added parameter goals at the bottom. And just so you don't think that we set the parameter wide enough that we're always within those goals, I will point out November 27th, if you go to the hardness column, you'll see we didn't reach our goal that day. Specific reasons, the line feeder clogged, the operator caught it, but it did affect the water that we were putting out that day. But you'll see the next day, we were right back down where we belong. Also, if you go to 1111 under the chlorine, we did bump 1/10 above where we want to be on our chlorine feed. This isn't that there's a danger with feeding that much chlorine, but it's cost-effective measures, not overfeeding, not wasting, so we're able to control costs. So on the bottom, you see what our targets are, where we want our hardness, our chlorine, our alkalinities to be, and these are the parameters that we try to stay within. Although not perfect, I think a very good month, and both items can be explained by equipment failure. However, it was caught quickly, repaired quickly, and you see the next day we were back in proper operation. The following page just shows training hours, and then again, you can compare 2021 on the last page to 2020 and 2019, where our flows are at, which is a pretty dramatic increase. Now jumping into the sewer department. Well, not that you would really want to jump into the sewer, but moving on to that, again, you can see our total wastewater flow was up. We had a little bit rainier month, which explains that, which gets back to our CFP lining. You know, I find it encouraging that we talk about things to solve these problems, and then we can show you exactly what happens during these rain events. Plant efficiency charts, again, on ammonia removal, 95%, solids removal, we're at 98%, BOD removal, 98%. Very, very excellent operation. Under work highlights, 8 new build inspections, and that's just the sanitary service laterals that the sewer department goes out and checks. But the other big highlight here I wanted to show you, well, I guess all 3 of these, is we dewatered and pressed about 500,000 gallons worth of sludge and produced into solids, which then was taken out to the fields as fertilizer, and pulled UV bulbs for the season. So that's just a picture of the guys moving the UV racks back into inside storage. The important thing is the last page. You can see the line, we had to make a repair. Our air lines, which are critical to our BOD removals and our SBRs, we noticed a little drop off in efficiencies, and through visual inspection, the operator saw there wasn't enough air getting into the tanks, because they look at those every day and they knew something was wrong. Well, about 10 feet down, we got to checking outside and found that this airline, as you can see, has a tremendous hole in it, and we made a repair. Now, my concern is if this section of this airline looks like this, what's the rest of that airline look like in there? So the operators are checking that, but this is going to go into our plant expansion. We've got 2 phases in these expansions. We've got to get the new system up, and that's going to take a while. We've got to watch this, but then we got rehab that we're going to have to do in the old sections of both the water and sewer plant. And I just wanted to point this out to you to show you, this is what happens. This was a major loss in efficiency and a waste in power, because those air compressors were trying to run to deliver the amount of oxygen we needed to the tanks, but with this size hole, we couldn't find it. So
How big is that?
that is a 10-inch line.
Be line.
Wrong, that's an 8-inch line.
Be line.
Well, that's going to be something that I will definitely have to discuss because by lining it, we will reduce the interior ID just a little bit, but how crucial will that be? Because I know we're initially discussing, we're going to have to increase the size of the blowers to double the size of the plant. is that old line going to be large enough to carry the air to all 4 cells? Or are we gonna have to replace it completely? So this is gonna be part of our phase 2 design. Phase 1 should be completed the end of this month. As we know, we have a 3-phase attack on these plants. So that'll be in phase 2 on the design option.
Thank you.
And then the last page is just, again, our bulk water and bulk sewer sales. And if you see our bulk sewer, how it's dropped off, well, that's because New Day's pumps were down. And you'll see next month, there's going to be a pretty drastic pickup. Now, I'm going to go just a little farther. Well, first, is there any questions about the sewer plant? I did have 2 more meetings. I think now's the time to hit with that. I met with Horizon today about broadband discussion and bringing it into town. Again, this is my first meeting with them, catching up to speed on this. They would like 2 things from us. They're coming and they're gonna bring that fiber in here. They're not exactly sure how they're gonna do it yet, but they want to get started. They would like to send a preliminary notice out to the community, let them know that through our water bills, that this is coming.
Mhm.
But they also pointed out very, very important to them, they would like to meet with council. The second meeting in March. If you approve that, I told them they could have about 20 minutes of our time. They want to discuss how they want to bring it in and discuss franchise fees and items such as that. So I told them I would bring it to council tonight to see if they were good for that second meeting in March.
Mhm.
And if they could have 20 minutes. Now, they'll give you all the time you want, but I said your delivery needs to be 20 minutes, then we'll have Q&A after.
Yes,
Makes sense.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. The last thing I want to discuss, at least I think, unless you have other questions for me, is I also had my first meeting with the group on the mobility hub. And had no idea how immense this project is. We are supposed to find out, I believe, the end of this week, whether we will receive the $750,000 grant to move forward. But in our meeting, and Bailey also attended that meeting, so jump in if I miss anything, but it's very important to them. If we do not get this $750,000 grant, is council still supportive and behind the project? If they don't get the $750,000 or the whole amount, if council is still supportive of the project, they believe they have other avenues to try to get funding, which will not cost the village money for them, but they want to make sure that we stay in their corner and support this project moving forward, and that we're not just going to say, oh, we didn't get it, we're going to back out. The other thing they would like to bring to our attention is, we've talked about possibly retaining Jim to oversee this project. Whether we do or we don't, they want to know if council would consider, and they have someone in mind. I don't have this name, that maybe the village could retain to maintain this project. But a better option, I believe, that they brought up, that somebody from LCATS, their transportation specialist, may want to step in and help support this. And I think that would just be part of their job. I'm not sure they would ask Johnstown for funds. Am I correct in that?
That's my understanding, yes. LCAT's hired a mobility manager maybe a month or 2 ago. And that mobility manager should be doing mobility projects throughout the county, which is what Johnstown's project would be. So we'll be approaching LCATS to ask them about that tomorrow. I should have an answer.
And then, go ahead, Marvin.
I have a problem with bringing LCATs in. it's a Johnstown project and we're wanting to work with the local company here, I think it should stay here. If they're recommending someone, we turn it over to LCATS, I think we're gonna lose control.
Well, Cats is already at the table, just so you know,
Might be at the
they're
top.
already,
They might be at the table, but Johnstown is the head of the table.
right.
I don't want to lose that position.
And the other part of the conversation was that Johnstown would still be needed to be at the head of the table because Johnstown in this overall large plan is the hub. There'll be a finger running out to Granville. There'll be a finger running out to Sunbury. I don't know. Was there a finger far as Utica? I think that was maybe on the outer edge, Sunbury, but we are the hub of making this happen. So it is important to them that I get maybe some sort of a response from Johnstown. If this grant does not come through, are you still behind the project and want to continue full force?
I would say yes, as long as it's not going to cost us all that much, right?
And that's what I relayed to them is, we can't foot the bill, but they weren't concerned with that portion of it. They said they'd look for other funding, but we need to be the hub for this initial layout to roll. So, because we're the center of this.
Personally, I feel like we're far enough down the road that we have to continue moving forward with it. And just because there are certain conditions that may have changed in the last several weeks, doesn't negate the need for what this would bring to the region. I agree with Marvin when you talk about control and things like that, because as much as we have into this, we have, there's a benefit to the city as well. And we need to make sure that, whomever is at the seat at the head of the table understands that we've put a lot of time, effort, and energy into this.
I did not mean to confuse the issue because it was never their intention and they made it clear, at least the way I understood it, Bailey. Johnstown is still the center point of this, and Johnstown is needed for this support.
This person
I-
would really be sort of like the detail person.
I disagree with you, Bailey. I disagree with you in the fact that we've been kept in the dark too much on some of this stuff. The last guy that we had down there would not tell us what was going on with the county. How long was we in the dark on the project out here on New River? And it's time this council start finding out what's going on. And I don't want to work with I will work with LCATS, but I sure don't want them at the head of the table, and I don't want their person down there that's running their show up here running Johnstown's show. We're working with Tech Rubber.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why
They
should
were-
we, and they recommended somebody, why shouldn't we use what they recommend?
Agreed.
Why should we go with them down there when we got a recommendation from our local people? And there's also another person that's been working on this in Washington. I didn't bring her name with me, that Jim signed up with her to work with. That was
And
told
again,
to me,
I'm
that was
finding-
told to me by Mark Frazier. We're gonna find out all things coming out of the wall.
I did not know that Tech had recommended I did.
I thought that's what you said. The Tech had a recommendation, somebody they was using.
No, they wanted to know if Johnstown wanted to hire as they were gonna hire Jim, as this council may still, that's to be yet to be decided. Jim to run this project and solely work on this project. They wanted to know if Jim wasn't the person, if Johnstown was still interested in hiring a person
I
to
think-
do it on an interim basis, because if we get the grant, then there will be a project manager will be hired and paid for by the grant, but the interim in between. They said, now, if we didn't want to pay someone, and maybe I explained this incorrectly, there is a possibility that LCATS at no cost to village could have someone do that legwork that possibly Jim was going to do.
I think within the budget for next year, and Dana, correct me if my memory is faulty, we have money carved out for a mobility specialist in some capacity.
Yes, I believe 50 grand, I think.
Yeah, something to that effect. So I think we have money budgeted. Who is on the other end, I think, is the question. And from what I understand, the Build Back Better piece has a new deadline of December 8th. So tomorrow, potentially, we'll have an idea of what this is. And I think that lends some impetus to us keeping the December 14th meeting we have scheduled on the books, because this could probably become a topic of conversation on that meeting about how we are moving forward, whatever the decision is with this project from the city's standpoint. That's the view that I have.
So what they really wanted tonight was if we, on the 8th, if the determination comes in, we know the government moves a little slow, but if we get a determination that we don't get that grant, is Johnstown still all in? They wanted to know if we were there, if they had to find a new center.
I'm in.
I'm in.
for the
Yeah,
project.
I'm in
ready
it too.
to- Hellcat's taken over.
I'd say we're all in. It's just the how conversation is something we would all need to have.
And I think that's fine. And they really didn't care how we did that, because I guess the initial conversation, they were thinking that Jim might contract it, and he still may. That's for council to decide. But then there was conversation that maybe if it's not Jim, but if I did say Tech, I didn't mean to. Tech didn't give a recommendation, but they wanted to know if we were going to hire somebody to take care of this. And then a second option was brought up, is that LCATS actually has hired a mobility hub manager, but in all cases, Johnstown is the centerpiece
What?
of this, and Johnstown is out front.
Why did Hellcats hire a mobility hub manager?
I cannot tell you that. Any insight on that, Bailey?
It's not a mobility hub manager, it's just a mobility manager. I think that they want a separate position to deal with their mobility projects, not necessarily to be involved in this project, but I think that they have a lot of mobility projects that they're sort of considering within the county, and they want somebody to be on those full time.
Well, that's fine for them, and I want to work with them, but I don't want to turn our project over to them.
And I didn't, if I expressed it that way, that we were turning the project over, I did not mean to. That's not where I was.
I've just never had any real warm fuzzy feelings when the county comes in and wants to do something for us, that they've ever done anything too beneficial for us. That's
Just
fine.
bringing those options to you. But I think our first big hurdle was, I hope, the 8th.
That's tomorrow.
Yeah. However, I think we can tell them that we're still strongly involved. And regardless of that, if we can find funding elsewhere, Johnstown is still
We'll have our own manager.
interested.
Yes.
We'll have our own specialist up here to take care of us.
Okay,
Any-
sounds
any-
great. Thank you.
Anything else?
No, I know that was long enough, but I needed to get it covered.
Okay, good. All right, we'll move on. We have no tabled legislation tonight, which is nice. So we'll move directly to ordinance 47, 2021. This is an ordinance to approve expenses and other expenditures of the city of Johnstown, Licking County, state of Ohio during the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2022 and ending December 31st, 2022. This is basically our budget is what we're talking about in this, and we will vote on this tonight. What?
Took a lot of fancy talk to say it was our budget.
Yeah, it was, didn't it? Ben, was there any other comments you had on the budget since you're?
Yeah, there are a couple of things I just wanted to bring up to council and get some feedback on, because like we talked about the last time we brought this up. There are things in the budget that finance had conversations on with staff that are used as a baseline, a jumping off point for how we look at funding things for next year. But in that the budget isn't set, those items aren't necessarily set yet. So brought up a couple things at the last meeting and wanted to have conversations with them now. And part of the reason why I figured we'd probably have to have another finance meeting in addition to the ARPA conversation is most likely looking at a third reading of the budget on the 14th, which is typical. We typically have 3 readings of the budget. But if there's any other considerations that finance needs to look at with respect to that third iteration on the 14th, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So the first thing that wanted to bring up from a staffing perspective is what is funded in here from planning and zoning is funding the inspector role from a part-time to a full-time position. And the conversation that we had in finance around that is to make that from a part-time to a full-time and have staff and Jack split the roles and Bailey split the role and responsibility between inspection, code enforcement, and anything else that would be needed under that role within planning and zoning. And in large part due to the upcoming complexity of the zoning code we have, the enforcement, some of the enforcement call outs that we've talked about, and just with the amount of work needed, not needing a time and a half of 1.5 people, but just moving that from a part-time to a full-time position. So that's the first thing I wanted to call out. So is there any discussion on that?
I think that full-time position should be a licensed and can do all the inspections and pull some of this back from the county. I know that you're talking about a full-time job, and right now with what's going on, is it really a full-time job? What's the duties? What's been made of it? What does the inspector do? Is he actually inspecting out how many hours a week he's working? Do we need somebody to go full-time, or are we well off with Mr. Blair that's doing it now?
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I think that's part of the conservative aspect to the budget that we put forth, that conversations have been had about ensuring that code enforcement piece is a piece that we have in planning and zoning going forward in a larger capacity. And if that means a full-time individual, then the budget supports that. Doesn't mean that we have to move to that. We can certainly stay at part-time and not expend those funds. But
What I would personally like to see is if we go with the full-time, have a man that's licensed or a person that's licensed for the state, do all the inspections and pull that business back from the county and do it in-house here.
I don't disagree with that necessarily, but I think that job description is up to staff to align in terms of who would fill that role and what the requirements would be. From a funding perspective specifically, that's what I'm just talking about. But I don't disagree with what you're
I
saying.
understand your funding 100%, but I don't think that that's a position that we want to turn over to staff to draw the description up.
Or descriptions have to come back to council for approval anyway.
Oh.
Yeah, for sure.
Any other discussion on the budget?
Are there any other conversations around that? Are we generally favorable for that within the budget as it is right now, and just talking about the job description and stuff as a separate piece, but funding that full time now? Again, don't have to, but that's how it's funded at the moment.
Just because it's funded doesn't mean we put it on.
Right,
Exactly.
right,
Right.
yeah. Mhm.
Just calling my concerns out to you.
Mhm.
Absolutely. The other piece that was called out, that we were talking about was the expenditure for the budgeting software, SSI, and that piece. Dana, we've got a lower number than what was discussed before, and that is down to $125,000, right?
135.
135?
Yeah, we just took out the 10,000 for the asset management piece.
Okay.
The additional, I'm still waiting on a decision on whether or not our server is going to be capable to handle the storage. And that would be an additional 10,000 if a year, if it's not capable of handling it, unless we decide to purchase another server or upgrade our current server. So
Again, it's 135 is built in with the hope that we can take it to 125 based off of what we have in house and if we can host it locally.
right, although there might be additional costs to upgrade our current server
Okay,
if
If
we
needed. Okay, go ahead, Marlon.
So we're gonna get, eventually, we're gonna get back up to the 175,000.
No,
no.
No. Mm-mm.
What's this new system gonna do for us?
This is going to be a massive overhaul of our current financial reporting system. It will have built-in workflows, whereas so that we can work together as a team remotely more efficiently. As opposed to right now, a lot of things are done with paper and handing things off and putting things on each other's desk. We can do automatic approvals through the system. It's a much more upgraded system than what we currently have, and it is cloud-based as well. So we can work remotely on it much more efficiently than we currently can. There will also be a budgeting portion to it and a financial analysis piece, which will be greatly helpful to council in forecasting and preparing budgets for the future, and also project management. The current system we have is very antiquated and hasn't been updated since, well, about 15 years ago.
so we're working through the budgetary software and it's 15 years old. A lot of Excel documents, Excel formulas. Anybody that works with Excel. Oh my gosh. And that is in large part where a lot of our workings happen within the budget space. Is that accurate?
That is true. And I currently right now I have to manage Excel spreadsheets, various systems, and there's human error that could come into play. And with this new system, everything will be housed in one place. It'll be seamless. It'll basically work with itself across different departments. It'll be much more efficient and will allow me to do more of the accounting work as opposed to all the tedious work that I do now with updating spreadsheets and things. So it'll make my job much more efficient.
To be able to take into account the asset management piece that we're now required to do as a city.
Yes.
Cloud-based means it's accessible in a much larger environment than what it is right now. And it's much less manual than what you're working in right now. The cost, we talk about 125, 175. What has been proposed is a breakdown over essentially a 5-year period. And then there's very similar to how we have right now, there's an annual maintenance fee, a service fee that's associated with it that comes with having the software.
$30,000 a year.
37.5. Yeah.
Right now, we're paying about 18,000 a year for
Yeah.
what we have.
So the complexity goes up, the price goes up. I'd say probably $18,000 a year with what we're having right now is pretty expensive based off of what ROI we get out of 15-year-old software. So that's what this piece would bring to the table. I am wholly supportive of it because I can't imagine with the complexity that we talk about from the budgets that we're still working in that type of environment. So
I don't like it, but the only reason I will support it is because of you guys who work at the finance committee down. I'm upset that we find out tonight there's another $10,000 involved when it wasn't involved before. I know when you and I discussed it before, it was 175 and you got it down to 125. And now it's another $20,000 to upgrade our other system. How much more are we going to have it? I'll shut up.
and that's valid. I think some of that are
Well,
one-time.
I'm
costs.
tired.
Sure.
I'm tired of staff keeping things from us and we don't find out as a council until it's emergency. I feel that the staff has part of the time working against the council. And I don't like that feeling. But I sure don't like finding out this stuff at the last minute.
Well, from what was discussed before and what's in the budget, it's been 135. We've talked about taking it down to 125 if that $10,000 hosting piece we can do locally instead of having it cloud-based. And that's where the difference is between the two. But the notes that finance has been working off of, it's been 135 because we took out the asset management piece for next year because we have a company that's going to be doing that for us and we don't need that piece as a part of the module for this upgrade. So I just want to clarify that, those numbers. Otherwise, within the budget, we've talked about a lot of these items already, but crack and seal and Cape Seal, micro seal, priority 1 and 2 from what Jack had provided us. Which as things actualize, we can hopefully add in priority 3.
I would like to get there if we could,
Yep.
to 3.
Which takes into account a lot of, Concord Crossing, Concord, Tyler Station, Tyler Place, and West Jersey. And then priority 3, hopefully another $50,000 if we can get there based off of how things are actualizing. We have a variety of contingencies in here based off of how things actualize. So we'll definitely look at the budget again in January like we always do to see what we can back in. Duncan Plains Road Improvement Project that we have $50,000 earmarked for over there at the Enterprise Center. The OPWC Jersey Street Project, if that comes through, which we will get information on that. Was it December? It's this month?
Yeah, I'm hoping we'll hear something here at the end of this month.
We have,
Last year it drug clear into
Good.
February.
this is year 3 for Jersey Street, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, but it's the only OPWC application we have in.
Yes, we made it our priority.
So if that doesn't come through, then we have $360,000 in CIP that we can apply toward other road projects or something else to that end. Water plant expansion savings, the water tower in here, that money is already bonded. Lift station upgrades in the sewer fund, a new loader for the sewer department, sludge storage building, but we're going to be paying some of that with bonded money. And then the balance of the Valley View and West Jersey Street sewer line and things like that. So the last piece that we want to talk about tonight, that's a part of this budget, it's a big part, has to do with the police department and dispatchers.
Before you jump in there, can I give you a reminder?
For sure. Yeah,
Please.
absolutely.
As you all know, we did get the Ohio Public Works grant for Edwards Road. But due to an overrun on the costs, not on our portion,
Mhm.
but on the other portion, we determined we would rebid that. And I'm planning on doing that in February. But Dana, we have a pretty substantial match
Mhm.
on our end.
For the Edwards Road.
Yes, for the Edwards Road. There was a certain amount of grant, but there was also a pretty big portion of no interest loan, I
Mhm.
think.
I don't recall off the top of my head, but I can look it up.
Well, I want to make sure that that's in our budget, because if we're going to rebid that, obviously
Yeah.
we've got to pay that. And has that been figured into the numbers anywhere this year?
Let me,
Should be.
It should be,
21?
because actually it should have been in last year's.
right.
And we didn't do the work, but as I said, it's just a reminder piece. We can't forget that we're gonna rebid that. Hopefully the numbers will come in right on the township side. And we'll be able to run that project this coming spring. So we have a portion we are committed to on Village Match,
We had only budgeted 50,000 for that.
on our match.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, that's super.
And I'm
That's
pretty-
super. I just want to make sure it's there.
I'm virtually positive that that is built into the budget, but we can validate that because I think you're right. The balance was grant and no interest loan that would
Yes.
fall under debt service probably in 23.
Just wanted to make sure that it was there, Okay, thank you.
So the last piece is the police department, which is, we talked about several meetings here as we were going through the finance, going through the budget. So what is built into the budget right now? And again, I want prompt discussion on council because that's how the budget reflects currently is, and Chief, feel free to fill in any part of this. What is built into the budget right now is moving the dispatch to county, retaining one dispatcher in the police department. The hiring of an additional officer at the end of Q1 of next year. Looking at an additional officer potentially in Q4 of next year based off of how the budget is actualizing in 2022. Biggest part of this whole conversation, obviously, is the change in the dispatch structure. So built into that is a fee that would be paid to the county that chief has estimated based off of call dollar volume. I'll let you speak to that specifically, but that is what is built into the budget right now from conversations we've had. So if there's deviation from that, or if it's not found favorable by the balance of council conversation, then we'll use the meeting on the 13th in finance to go back and rework what we can based off of what monies are available. So, Chief.
So, no, thank you, Mr. Lee. Members of council, so early on when we had discussions on about this, and it has been occurring for several months, there was a request to get the pricing in. Now, I have been working with vendors very diligently in order to get those pricings back. It wasn't until late Friday afternoon that I actually received in writing what the cost estimate would be for CAD. And that was really the last piece of the puzzle that I needed in order to do this. Now, what I feel is, given the time of year and given the circumstances, we kind of put the cart in front of the horse on this matter, and we're in the position that we are in right now. Mr. Lee is correct. My request would be for the reduction of 4 staff members, the addition of additional staff members, which means that the police department would be 3 employees shy of what it is scheduled or budgeted to be here in 21, with the possibility of a quarter for hire. However, not written in stone. It's my estimation based on what I have here is that if we were to keep the dispatching center, and again, that is completely up to council, the cost of keeping that dispatching center would be roughly, and this is an estimated cost, $306,000. If we were to dissolve our dispatch, use the county services as dispatch, with the estimated cost of $60,000 per year and the estimated cost of $58,000 actual dollars for a one-time cost for CAD, that would bring our total expenditure in 2002 to $242,000. And that is just with 1 officer hired at the end of Q1, meeting at the beginning of Q2. So there is a cost savings there. Roughly, as you can see, there would be a cost savings of more than $50,000. And I also think that what we're doing is we're maintaining our service in a way, maybe in some aspects getting a better service, but then in some aspects not getting a better service, meaning that if an individual were to come to the window at 2 o'clock in the morning right now, well, not right now, but in the past, if somebody came to the window at 2 o'clock in the morning, there would be somebody there to answer. However, we're not going to have that under this, and it's important that council understands that as well. It does mean that Monday through Friday, with the weekends excluded, somebody can still come to the police department, request a copy of a report, use the drug drop-off box, and those type of things. So I do want council's direction on how they would like to proceed forward. Ultimately, this decision does fall upon the shoulders of council, and it does affect people as well, and the community.
Just to frame it too, just so everybody understands that the move to county at this point was born out of necessity. If you could highlight that, it wasn't
Absolutely.
just a flip of the switch from one day to another.
And roughly about 2 months ago, there was a loss of a number of members within the staff that forced me to make basically a decision upon my own shoulders in order to maintain our services and not drive overtime through the roof to use the county services. Now, this was made temporarily, and the county was gracious enough to host us temporarily. And we've been doing a great job of maintaining that service now with using their service 50% of the time. And I've received little complaints from the community and the staff, and so far seems to be working.
Chief, with the hiring of the new officer in Q2, what will that bring to your staff? What number of officers will we have in Johnstown?
So again, early on this year too, there was a question that was presented to me, what I would need in order to get to where I felt would be adequate staffing. And that number I put out there was 14. Realistically, what I would like to get to is 12. The reason I put 14 out there is what it does is it takes me with me side where I'm working on administrative matters and policies and stuff and not answering service calls. And then would also add a detective when that detective would not be answering service calls, just simply working on investigative matters as they come forward to that person. 12 gives me enough officers where a minimum of 2 officers would be working at any given time. And that would also include myself, which is not a problem. But I need 3.6 officers per shift in order to maintain that standard. I can't hire that 0.6 of an officer, so I would round that up to 4 officers per shift. We have 3 shifts here in Johnstown, which means I would need a staff of 12. The additional hires would mean that it would bring that staff up to 11, include myself. And if there was an additional officer hired in Q4, that would bring me up to that 12, that magic number that I'm really looking for.
So we have 10 right now.
Include myself, yes, ma'am.
When I'm confused here. When it started out, you said you estimate, I guess we don't have a figure on what it costs us on dispatchers this year. You estimate dispatchers would cost us $306,000. Okay, and it's gonna cost us $242,000.
Yes, sir.
That includes the officer?
It does include the officer. So my estimation on the dispatchers is when I put this information together, I did not know what rate of raise they would receive for 2020. I estimated 5%, which that estimation is wrong because it is indeed 3%. In addition to that, I did not know what the cost of benefits would be. It is my understanding that some of the benefits went up by 5%. So there is going to be a slight deviation in my estimation there because I can't tell what the future is going to bring us. But I do feel that 306 brought us very close to where we need to be, maybe just slightly over. And the estimated the cost in 2020, I don't know 100% about what it's going to cost to go for the sheriff's office. I believe that the highest amount that it could be would be $60,000 and the lowest amount that it could be would be 23. That's a pretty big deviation. However, to remain conservative, I would like to come at the highest amount possible.
If I know, I'm trying to make this clearer. Okay, so right now they're estimating $60,000 a year, which is the high end. We have a one-time fee of 58,000, right?
For new CAD services.
And that's only one time?
A recurring cost after that, I believe, of 5,000 annually, which right now we're paying 12, so it'd be a lower.
Okay, so if the dispatchers are costing us 306,000, you take away 118,000, you have 118,000 savings, right? Without the officer.
Correct. However, but then I also want to point out to council that officer is going to make more that following year. And then if there was an additional hire, then eventually that gap is going to close. It just will, but it does get me closer to my goals where I need to be. But it is important to understand that as those rates of those officers rise, it's going to close that gap.
Okay.
So hiring an officer in Q2, we would be recognizing about a $50,000 savings
Right.
per year.
And if it's
Once you
okay,
hire in Q4, you would be at a deficit
Right.
of what you're doing.
and if I'm able to approach council, I'll present to you what I have here.
Oh, sure.
Chief, if you could, when you get back, I know you outlined for us in finance, other communities that may or may not have dispatch locally that are close to us, or may be already signed up with the sheriff's department.
And I just want to point out to our audience that our fire department uses the county dispatcher, so it's not something that would be new to this area. I'm just want to point that out because if you have a heart attack, I think we're all pretty comfortable with the response that we get from our EMS squad. So it would be the same type of people. Okay.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Leah, can you present that question to me one more time, sir?
Absolutely. You had mentioned in one of our finance meetings and maybe here other communities around us that operate or in a similar capacity to where they operate out of the sheriff's department and don't have local dispatchers.
We are one of 2 communities that have our own in-house dispatchings. It's us and Granville, and we're the only 2 that are left. Everybody else has been absorbed by the 911 center.
Thank you.
And that does include Newark Police Department. The city of Newark uses their services as well.
Okay. Doesn't Heath have their own though?
They do, but it's a 911 center. We just operate dispatching. And
Oh,
same with Granville, they only operate in dispatch, which means that if you were to have an intruder in your home and you were to dial 911, that initial call would go to the 911 center, not to Johnstown. Once they determine that you indeed lived in Johnstown, they would transfer that call to Johnstown, which at that time you'd have to regurgitate that information, which if somebody's in your home as an intruder, that's 90 seconds you don't want lost.
okay. I didn't realize there was a difference like that. Okay, thank you.
I've asked several times, and I know that you are having trouble getting a price out of the sheriff's department about this for call and stuff, but I have trouble dealing with an estimate and voting on an estimate. That's all it is an estimate. What if the sheriff's department comes back and says it's gonna cost us $120,000 a year? I didn't know about the other 58,000 until the other day, and you said that you got that down from how much? 175 to 58?
That's CAD. So my initial estimate from the conversion of a new CAD system was, I believe, $154,000, and I chiseled that down to an actual 58,000.
You have it in writing.
And I got it in a physical quote. Yes, sir. Written quote.
We had
And
a
then-
discussion Friday, chief, and I told you that the sheriff's department's been hanging out here a lot, and I've been sniffing around wanting to take the whole department over. And I don't have trouble with the dispatchers. I think we had that discussion when you first come here about having a sheriff dispatch for Johnstown. And at that time, you didn't think it was a good idea. So we went with that, but now it's become a good idea, which I'm fine with. But just questions on that, why we can't get an official amount out of the sheriff's department.
Well,
Might sound petty to you, but it's not to me.
Mr. Block, I don't know if it clears this up any or not. I believe that if I look at Newark is being charged $10 per call right now, which would be less than that $18 per call estimate that I put on there. I will also say that if we were to pay, we would be, other than Newark, the only ones in the county to pay. The sheriff's office knows that I am still potentially coming to them on January 2nd for full-time dispatching, unless council says otherwise. They have not sat down with me with costs. They have not sat down with me in MOU. And it's honestly my belief that I'm just going to melt into there and do what everybody else does and not really pay anything at all. So it's a possibility we might not pay a single dime for the services until the sheriff's office comes and charges everybody. I don't know. What I can put in front of council is the estimation that on the high end, $60,000, I think is
Well,
it's
I'm gonna
very
read-
conservative.
I'm gonna read something to you out of the charter here. The charter says you're going out and negotiating a contract with the sheriff's department. You're going back January 1st to negotiate to finalize that. Under section 5.04, powers and duties of the manager. The manager shall be the chief administrative and law enforcement officer of the municipality. The manager is the one that should be discussing these things and taking care of them.
You're correct, Mr. Block.
Well, with all due respect to you, I don't think it was your place to go and negotiate this without the manager's approval. And from what I've heard, it come in and you were forced into doing it because the dispatchers left. Well, why did dispatchers all leave at once?
It's a very tough job market out there, Mr. Block. There's plenty of places in this county that the dispatchers are not paid well. And the fact of the matter is they could go to many different industries within this very much county and make tremendously more money. And it's not just this division that's had problems. It's been all the divisions across here that's had problems.
Well, I think that some of our departments are just going out on their own and doing all these things without, and I don't think council has to micromanage everything, but it's got all out of proportion to what we're finding out after the fact and asked to agree to after these deals have been made and stuff.
Well, Mr. Block, nothing's been written in stone, sir.
Well, you said you had to go January 1st and it hadn't been approved by council yet.
And again, sir, nothing's been written in stone.
Well,
So what do we do, chief? If it doesn't pass council, what do we do January 1st?
So if council says we want to keep our dispatching the way it is and nothing will change, I will continue to keep the 12 hours and I will hire the staff. Once the staff is fully trained, we will resume operations as normal.
Estimated time on getting that staff trained?
6 to 8 months, sir.
Okay.
This is something council considered years ago, was moving our dispatchers to the county. At that time, our chief was not for it, and then he will give us these, like 1,000 calls a day or something like that, a month, that would make it so costly that we never moved forward with it, and we couldn't prove that what he was saying was incorrect. So dispatching is costly. I mean, future technology would be an additional cost in the future. I think we should, my feeling is we should move forward with the county 911 dispatching. And as I said, we've had good experience with it with the fire department. And that would be my decision. That's my opinion only.
I agree with Cheryl. I agree with going with dispatch with the county. I disagree with the way it come about without council knowing it prior. That's what I am upset with. And real upset.
Understandably, sir.
And the other thing, you're getting rid of all of them. We might as well put it out on the table right now. You're getting, how many officers have you hired since you've been here, chief? You had 8 when you got here.
I believe I've hired 3, sir, maybe
Okay.
4.
Okay, we've funded about everything you wanted, and you're wanting to keep one dispatcher in there to be the face of the public. Well, and you're wanting more officers and stuff. That one dispatcher you put right on the paper here, that's going to cost you as administrative assistant for you, 62,000 a year. And you can put an officer on the street for 50,000.
Who's going to manage a court, sir?
Hire full of a part-timer to manage the court. You said you wanted rid of traffic court out of your department anyway.
Well, there's that too, but then I also feel like the public should have an expectation to come to the police department and be greeted by somebody.
The 60, say 2,000, that includes benefits, doesn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Because
Yeah.
benefits are very expensive.
Yes, ma'am.
So besides, yeah.
That was part of some of the opposition I had initially when we had this conversation, was the customer service piece of it. So to hear that there will still be somebody in the plan would be to have somebody still physically in the police department for a period of time during the day makes me feel better about the situation. And I knowing that the fire department uses the same program, and that it saves time ultimately with the call is of comfort. Would you mind running through your estimate, your $60,000 estimate, in terms of how you got to $60,000 on the high end?
Right. So what I did is I looked at how many calls are made per day where somebody physically calls in and we dispatch an officer. So it's not an estimated number. It is 6.36 calls per day. That's looking at the entire 2021. If I were to consider a traffic stop, a call for service, a called in call for service, which it's not, it's an officer initiated call for service, that would bump that number to 9.16. And that's right here on this paperwork. If I was to look at the anticipated cost of central dispatching, believing that the sheriff's office was going to charge us $18 per call without traffic stops, the math would come to $41,785.20. And then if I was to do that same pricing at $10 per call, which is the same price Newark would pay, that would be $23,214 even. And then with the traffic stops, obviously those numbers would come up. And again, I do not believe that a traffic stop is a call for service, because that's what the sheriff's office, where although they were not able to define that to me, when an officer makes a traffic stop, that's an initiated interaction between an officer, not a call for service. But to stay conservative and believing that this could be the absolute most, I believe that at $18 per hour at 9.16 calls per day, that cost annually would be $60,181.20.
Do you think in having the conversation that this is something that we'll be voting on in X number of days would lend any additional conversation with the sheriff's department to get us a firm dollar amount of what we're looking at?
Well, when we come to the table, I feel that it's going to be negotiating anyhow. And if I'm the only person in Lincoln County that would be paying for the service, then I would immediately come to the table that I want to pay no more than what Newark's paying.
Yeah.
It's only fair. And I think that I would easily win that argument. In addition to that, I would argue that a traffic stop is not initiated by somebody calling in. It's something that the officer is initiating. So it's plausible to believe that the low end number would actually be applicable rather than the high end number. And I've had several conversations with the sheriff's office, and with that time also spent with Mr. Leonard, now departed. And the sheriff's office, they're fully understanding that the services are likely to come, and there's not been any talk of an MOU or anything. It's just been, what transitional items do we need? In addition to that, it's not just the city of Johnstown that's being affected, but it's also Hartford that's being affected because we currently do their dispatching. So they too are also going to get affected as well.
I just fundamentally have a problem with going out of the charter here. And it should have been the duty of the manager to negotiate these contracts and stuff, and it was done. And I just don't appreciate it being done that way. I think we should get back into the parameters of our charter and stay there. I think we're going to have to follow through with this, but from now on, I think that charter should be adhered to the letter. Only time we change the charter is when it goes to vote. And I don't appreciate it coming about this way. And I told you that out in the parking lot last Friday. I would say what I thought to your face, not behind your back. That's the way I feel about it. No hard feelings, chief. But I don't appreciate you doing this and coming to council last on it.
I agree with you, Mr. Block. I had also shared with you that
Well, you've also done some other things that we might as well discuss right now. What was the discussion when you went to and you're a resident over there and it's your privilege to do it. What was your discussion with the Concord East Homeowners Association? Maybe I got the wrong story from them.
you might have, sir.
Okay. I'll give you a chance here, but they put the word out that you come to that and you spoke for an hour. And you told them that you was there as a private citizen, I assume. And then you told them that council was for that project. And they might as well give up and start working with the developer, because we was for that project and we was for giving them the other access over there. If that's wrong, I'd like for you to clear it up.
I think that a lot of times when you say something to somebody, they infer. So you can be vague in the way that you respond, and then they can take anything that they want to and then turn that around. So if I told them directly, I have not told them anything that has not been publicly known in these meetings. And then they can get on and they can watch these videos and so on and so forth and take the same bit of information that I do by being here right now.
Well, what they told me was that you told them that council was in favor of the project and the solicitor was in favor of the project.
That is
Might as well give
inaccurate.
up. That's inaccurate.
That is inaccurate.
Glad you cleared that up.
Okay, can we move forward with this?
Well,
Dealing
I
with the
want you to clear
dispatchers?
that up because it's a stain on him, and I'll go back to the people and tell them to quit spreading false rumors about the chief.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I would like to make a motion to move forward with the dispatchers going to Lincoln County 911 Center. Is there a second to that?
I will second that.
Okay. Teresa, can you call for the vote?
Yes. Ben Lee,
Yes.
Cheryl Robertson,
Yes.
Sharon Hendren,
Yes.
Doug Blainer,
No.
Marvin Block.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. All right, we'll go on to ordinance 48, 2021.
Cheryl,
Yes, I'm
can
sorry.
I just with the budget
Oh,
done
I'm
at this
sorry.
point? No, I just wanted to clarify.
I'm trying to move the meeting along.
Nope, absolutely. I just want to clarify, with the budget as it sits right now,
Mhm.
are we okay keeping it for a third reading
Oh,
Oh,
for the 14th?
thanks.
yes.
Because I would like, because I would want to make sure that we have a third reading for it. Just again, the complexity of the budget and the questions that are out there. We typically have a third reading. Is that okay?
Okay with me.
Okay, yeah,
Okay,
all right.
perfect. Thank
Sorry,
you.
Ben.
Nope, fine. I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Okay, now we will go to ordinance 48, 2021, which is amending ordinance 3420, the annual appropriation ordinance of the city of Johnstown to approve necessary changes of appropriations. Dana, can you help us out here?
Yes, this is to increase certain expenditures for the fee that we pay Rita to do our taxes. With increased revenue, we also have increased fees because it is a percentage of the revenue that they collect for us. And since we've received additional revenues, we need to incur additional fees, and the money wasn't initially appropriated for that. Also, the same is true, same concept for the water deposits. We've had more homes built and more residents moving in. Therefore, the revenues have been increasing and the appropriations have to increase as well. It's they work in conjunction with one another. So this is to just increase the revenues and appropriations for both of those lines, and the net effect on the finances is zero.
Okay, and we will vote on this this evening. Is there a motion?
I so move.
I'll second.
Okay, Teresa?
We're gonna open it for public
Oh,
comment.
yeah, sorry. I'm opening it up for public comment. Any comments? Now I'll close public comment. Now we're ready, Teresa.
Cheryl Robertson,
Yes.
Sharon Hendren,
Yes.
Doug Lehner,
Yes.
Marvin Block,
Yes.
Ben Lee.
Yes,
Okay. Moving on to ordinance 49, 2021, and ordinance amending ordinance 3420, the annual appropriation ordinance of the city of Johnstown to approve necessary changes of appropriations. And Dina, you're up again.
This is for the new cruiser that was approved earlier this year. And I get word that we are receiving it this week, possibly tomorrow. So
News.
this is to receive the loan proceeds and to appropriate the money so that we may pay the car dealership for the cruiser. And we'll repay the bank over a period of 3 years. And that is already built into the budget for debt service.
Thank you. Any comments here?
the cruiser comes with the computer chip, right? It's not sold separately. Comes with it? Okay, that's good.
Okay.
Let's check it.
I'll open comments to the public. I'll close public comments.
I'll move to approve ordinance 49-2021.
I'll second.
Okay, Teresa, we're ready for the vote.
Sharon Hendren,
Yes.
Doug Lehner,
Yes.
Marvin Block,
Yes.
Ben Lee,
Yes.
Cheryl Robertson.
Yes.
Question mark?
How long has this been ordered?
I think it was a part of last year's budget.
Yeah.
Or this year's budget. Last
Well,
year.
this year's budget.
Yeah, it's been about a year, it seems like. but-
Yeah,
almost.
not quite, but yes,
like
almost.
March. Oh, yeah, February.
I wonder if I'll take a year's depreciation off.
Yeah, right.
Okay. We're moving on to our resolutions. Resolution 2021-50, a resolution to accept the resignation of a public employee and appoint interim manager. Okay. As we know, our village-city manager, Jim Leonard, resigned, and Jack Liggett will be our interim city manager. Any comments? What?
So thank you, Jack.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Yes.
Jack.
Okay, I'll open this up to any public comments. No, I'll close the public comments. And is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Teresa, we're ready?
I just had a quick question.
Sure.
The resolution notes that the exhibit is attached.
Oh,
Did you want to say something about that, Ben, or what?
Oh, yeah, no, that's a good point. So the exhibit is essentially list of terms for Jack with the additional responsibility that he'll be undertaking as a part of this interim appointment as city manager, essentially granting authority to him that a city manager has, so that we're covered with contract signed, negotiations, things like that, everything enumerated within the charter. And then additional compensation for the period of time is being discussed, the ability to carry over vacation time outside of the handbook because of the situation that we're in. Jack has taken back some personal time that he had scheduled, just understanding the situation, which we're very appreciative of. So wanting to make sure that that is carried over and it isn't lost because it's outside of the handbook parameters. But that'll be updated here. No, that'll be updated. The exhibit isn't in the packet itself, but
Put it on there for the record, that final statement that Cheryl come up with.
yeah, so the final statement that we'll have in here, just to ensure that Jack is, yes, goes back to his original position, essentially states that after the interim period is complete and the assignment is complete and we have a full-time city manager on staff, that Jack will be reinstated back to the assistant city manager status, as well as overseeing water, sewer, and street that he has, because the intent absolutely of everyone is to ensure that he is at the head and the helm as we go through this water and sewer upgrade and expansion and things like that go forward. So he's doing us, to Doug's point, very appreciative of him stepping into this role and doing us and the community a great service and sacrifice of personal time because of the amount of effort that goes not only into this position, but everything else that Jack does on a daily basis and has grown that list over the last 40 years. So I don't think there are enough words to describe the appreciation with stepping into this position. Personally, I can't think of anybody else that would do a better job than you. So wanted to outline that and make sure that that piece is noted. Did I miss anything?
No, you done.
Okay.
Done very good, Ben. I'm proud of it.
Thank you.
That's great. So I'll attach that when I get it. I have a first by Sharon, a second by Doug, and I'll call the roll. Doug Lehner,
Yes.
Marvin Block,
Yes.
Ben Lee,
Yes.
Cheryl Robertson,
Yes.
Sharon Hendren.
Yes.
We'll move on to resolution 2021-51. It's a resolution to appoint a city law director, city prosecutor, municipal court magistrate, city engineer, and city auditor to serve the city and its employees for the year 2022. For the public, for the city law director, it's Frost Brown Town LLC. For city assistant prosecutor, it's Mark Gardner. City magistrate, Tracy Van Winkle. City engineer, Prime AE Group Incorporated. And the city auditor is the auditor of state of Ohio. Is there any comments from council? I will open it to public comment. No public comment, that will be closed. And is there a motion?
I make a motion to.
I'll second.
Marvin Block,
Yes.
Ben Lee,
Yes.
Cheryl Robertson,
Yes.
Sharon Hendren,
Yes.
Doug Lehner.
Yes.
Thank you. Next up is resolution 2021-52. A resolution establishing the regular meeting dates in time for all regular city council meetings for the 2022 calendar year. And we have all the dates in front of us. Is there any comments or changes? No. I will open this up to public comment. We'll close public comment. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Okay, Teresa, roll.
Yes. Ben Lee,
Yes.
Cheryl Robertson,
Yes.
Sharon Hendren,
Yes.
Doug Laner,
Yes.
Marvin Block.
Yes.
Thank you, Teresa. You ready?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Next resolution is 2021-53, a resolution establishing the regular meeting dates and time for all regular planning and zoning commission meetings for the 2022 calendar year. Again, the dates are in front of us. Any changes or comments?
I have a question.
Sure.
January 11th. Just curious why planning and zoning isn't scheduled for January 11th.
We need to appoint some additional members, and we don't have a staff member prepared to attend that meeting. A staff liaison.
It's benefit of urgy or something like
Oh, okay.
Noted.
Thank you, Bailey, for reminding
I was
us.
going to ask Jim Leonard to attend that meeting in my place, and he is obviously not going to be able to.
that. I think we can forgo one meeting.
Yes.
Just making sure that wasn't an editorial miss. Got it.
Can you come back from the honeymoon to the meeting and then go back? or not?
As long as, can I get the big frosty?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sold. That's
Okay.
the only question I have.
I'll open this to public comment. Close public comment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Ready for the vote?
Cheryl Robertson,
Yes.
Sharon Hendren.
Yes.
Doug Laner,
Yes.
Marvin Block,
Yes.
and Lee.
Only with the Wendy's thing. Yes. Yes.
Okay. We're learning about the deal from Wendy's. Resolution 2021-54. A resolution establishing submittal deadlines for planning and zoning commission applications in the 2022 calendar year. Is there any questions or concerns from council?
Bailey, I'm sure you reviewed everything. And okay.
Okay. I will open this up to public comment. Yeah, Ryan, please.
Ryan Green, 408 Sunset. Does this keep it as is for these submittal deadlines? Because I know that was something we talked about on zoning. Not that on this, there would be there next year, but I know it's something we talked about, getting more time. So if we went with these submittal guidelines, would everything still come in like the Friday before?
This is not guidelines for the agenda. This is guidelines for when an applicant needs to submit their application to get on that agenda.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, if that would
The
probably
agenda,
not this piece to address it in, we'll probably have to create something separate, but to give the zoning commission more time.
the agenda timeline is put forth, well, not the agenda timeline, but the notice timeline is put forth in the ordinances. I believe
what I'm
that it's 72 hours right
You
now.
see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, but
So we'd probably have to write up something different, I would guess, but to give the zoning commission more time to review things. Cause I know from Friday, Tuesday is a little tough. At least give us 2 weeks, something.
And that would have to be a change by ordinance.
mhm.
Yeah, so possibly a recommendation for what that change might be, and then we'd have to
Mhm.
That's what I thought.
vote on a change
but
by
I didn't know if
ordinance.
we could do
Doable.
that.
It's doable.
Okay.
I didn't know if we could do that here. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Ryan.
And can I make a comment to that?
Sure.
Not only should it be done through planning and zoning, but I think for the entire council as well. We should revisit that now. I think there's things that are put on the agenda, like Ryan said, on a Thursday or Friday, and we have to decide on it by Tuesday. That's just not enough time. So that may be something else that we consider as a council.
Mhm.
Just for further consideration.
Just usually we have two readings on the ordinances, so that it gives us a little bit extra time. So,
Correct. Yep. But I'm thinking that if we have a more structured where we have
Submission deadlines for council. so you're saying.
exactly,
Okay.
Oh, I see. Sure.
exact same thing.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it just feels like you scramble around a lot. All of us do up here, you know. You get something on Thursday or Friday and you want to deliberate on it on Tuesday and decide on it by Tuesday.
Especially,
Kinda crunched on time. That's just FYI. That's all.
especially it's hard on Teresa and Bailey.
Sure.
Getting it out on
Yep.
time because they don't
It
always
is.
know all this stuff's coming at them.
As I was gonna say, it might be, and not to speak for staff, but it might make it easier for staff if you have hard deadlines for submission for council things.
Mhm.
And when things need to be on that specific agenda. So I think that's a good call out.
Stop a lot of frustration.
It would.
Good call out, Ryan. I'm sorry, Ryan, ain't you?
Hey, you're taking that now.
Don't take any credit. if you-
Is there any other comments or
No, man.
we'll open it to public comment, close public comment and motion, anyone?
So moved.
Hey, Teresa, we're ready for the vote.
Yes. Let's see where I left off. Sharon Hendren.
Yes.
Doug Lehner,
Yes.
Marvin Block,
Yes.
Ken Lee,
Yes.
Cheryl Robertson.
Yes. Thank you. Moving to resolution 2021-55, a resolution establishing the 2022 schedule of holidays for the city of Johnstown. As you can see, we have now added the new federal holiday of Juneteenth. Any other comments?
New Year's Day observed. We don't have that. I assumed that offices will be closed on the 3rd.
Wow.
No.
Saturday.
Well, we went with the handbook. Our employee handbook says that if a holiday falls on a Saturday, it's to be observed on Friday. And if it falls on Sunday, it's to be observed on Monday. So New Year's Day is on Saturday this year. So we're observing it on Friday.
31st.
Did we have a resolution?
Okay.
Yeah, council did pass an amendment to the holiday schedule from last
I
year.
think we did.
We
I
did.
remember that. Okay. Yes.
If you, I mean, it's a little late to change it now, maybe.
Oh,
That's why.
okay. I will open this up to public comment, close public comment. Motion, anyone?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Doug Lehner,
Yes.
Marvin Block,
Yes.
Ken Lee,
Yes.
Cheryl Robertson,
Yes.
Sharon Hendren.
Yes.
Resolution 2021-56, a resolution appointing members to the Johnstown Tree Commission. And Marvin Block and Andy, is it Bruni? Is that pronounced
Yes.
correctly? Thank you, Marvin, for everything you've done already on the Tree Commission. Any other comments? Open up to public comment, close public comment, and a motion.
So move.
I'll second.
Marvin Block,
Doug said I had to abstain because I'm a nominee, but I want to vote for
you
myself.
can vote for yourself.
Yes.
Ken Lee,
Yes.
Yeah.
Cheryl Robertson,
Yes.
Sharon Hendren.
Yes.
Doug Lehner.
Yes.
You vote for yourself in the election, right?
Moving to resolution 2021-57, a resolution to reappoint Marvin Block to the Johnstown Community Improvement Corporation. And Marvin, you do want to do this, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good.
We can get more active.
Okay.
Yes, I agree.
And I'll open this to public comment, close public comment. And move to, for a motion to be presented.
I motion that we adopt this.
I'll second.
Ken Lee,
Yes.
Cheryl Robertson,
Yes.
Sharon Hendren,
Yes.
Doug Lanner,
Yes.
Marvin Block.
Yes.
Moving to introduction of legislation. Now, this is the first reading. It's ordinance 50-2021, an ordinance enacting chapter 194 of the City of Johnstown codified ordinances to establish a transient occupant, I can't even say it tonight. Thank you, tax. It's a long meeting.
It is.
This is subject to read over and we can discuss it. Ben, is there any comments before, or you want to talk about it the next time?
No, this is something we've talked about in finance. We talked about it in council about enacting this tax for transient accommodations, which are 4 units and under, and hotel tax for 5 units and over. And this would achieve that end
Okay,
based off of Upper Arlington.
yes. We will now at this point move to other business. Is there any other discussions?
Just call out for Teresa, because I know we have openings on planning and zoning
Oh, yeah.
going into next year. We have at least, we have 2, right?
Seats?
Yes,
Well,
yes, Ryan and
Technically, there's
Ron
4.
Dane. Ryan and Ron Dane will
Yeah.
be empty.
yes.
Yes.
Well, John Merriman's term is up, but he would like to be resubmitted. He would like to be reappointed. And
Yeah,
your
the
term,
Village representative, yeah, or the council representative, yeah.
your term as council representative is expiring too. So they will technically have 4. If they reappoint, then they'll have 2.
Okay, so, but we need to advertise for those 2.
I started the advertisement today.
I saw that, yeah.
I actually have 2 applicants so far.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So advertisement ran today. I have it running on Facebook and just on our website. I didn't know if you wanted to, I don't know if people from Newark, I mean, is it worth running an ad out there? I doubt it. So I feel like that's the best way I can do it now. I put it on Facebook today.
I saw it on there. I read that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Facebook official. It's running, the applications run to, I think I put noon on the 28th. So it'll run for 3 weeks and then council can decide if you want to try to interview and appoint. It'll give you a week maybe before the first meeting to review. So whatever schedule you want to do.
That's the only question I had. Thank you.
Any other business? I think I have one, but now I don't remember what it is, so
Oh,
I'll do it the next meeting. Okay, at this,
Buy your own Christmas presents too, sure.
yeah. Okay, at this point, we need to move to our second executive session, which is to consider the employment of a public employee. At this point, just to give everyone a heads up here, we will stay here this time because no decisions will be made afterwards. The minute we come back from executive session, we will adjourn. So the meeting will be over at that point. We do need Jack Conso in executive session, Jack, Ryan Green, Teresa Monroe.
Dana?
I don't, oh, Dana? Dana, yeah, we'll include Dana too. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for
I need a
attending.
roll call vote, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I need a motion and a second.
I'll move to make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Cheryl Robertson,
Yes.
Sharon Hendren,
Yes.
Doug Lanner,
Yes.
Marvin Block,
Yes.
Ben Lee.
Yes.
Thank you.